One, there's really nothing that I'm going to say here that is new. Some of the choices that we have made in the last 50 to 60 years, we are not just going to wish them away or throw something in and they will all disappear and the problems will be solved overnight. So if you have behaved badly in over 60 years, then it will take you time to correct yourself. Our country has a great destiny, and this future will certainly remain bright. Even then, the world cannot afford to wait in perpetuity for Nigeria to begin to play to its full strength. Quietly, Amadou Sanusi, the second CON, Emir of Kano, and Igwe Alfred Nemeka Achebe Abogidi, CFR, Obi of Onitsha, who is on his way, who have graciously joined as chairman and royal father of today's event respectively. The two royal fathers in our midst, accomplished professionals and portraits of grace and dignity, embody the greatness and eternal acclaim of our heritage. Their presence at this auditorium points to the seriousness of today's event and serves as a poignant reminder to all of us that there is a growing hunger across demographics to direct our national trajectory. I thank our distinguished royal fathers for their abiding commitment to a Nigeria that works for all of us. Commendations are also due to all patriotic Nigerians who have gathered from all walks of life to listen and share important ideas on how to improve the economic and social realities of our people. On this note, I particularly want to recognize our father who is here, Dr. Ma Elazo, who, thank you. Dr. Ma Elazo will be 96 in a few months. He was 95 last year, and we celebrated him in Umuahia. Thank you, sir, for what you do. Thank you. I'm optimistic that at the end of today's interactions, all of us will go home with a few things to reflect and act upon, especially as political debates return to the front burner. I will never stop talking about the critical connection between politics and the economy, how politics drives critical economic outcomes, and why none of us can afford the luxury of political indifference. Understandably, a lot of people are disillusioned by the disappointments of the years past. But again, the irrefutable truth is that things will continue to deteriorate if we insist on staying away from the field of play. The importance of participating in the political process has little to do with convenience or comfort. It is rather a patriotic duty to our fatherland that we can no longer shy away from. You cannot claim to love Nigeria or your state or the city where you reside and yet remain aloof were decided not at the polling units, but by some underhand deals that eventually set the state on a difficult trajectory. In the end, everything went downhill. It got so bad that basic social services like urban waste management and maintenance of public infrastructure were abandoned. Thousands of families lost their breadwinners as the party that stole the mandate of the people enacted an unofficial policy to deny workers and retirees their entitlements. In the 8 years that followed, entrepreneurs suffered severe losses as social services collapsed, and when they could no longer afford to live with the nightmare, they quietly packed their bags. Those who found buyers sold their properties and then bid their goodbyes. Abia, I can say with every sense of conviction, is proof that economics cannot be separated from politics. Within Nigeria and around the world, evidence abounds that it is near impossible to build a robust economy on the foundation of political corruption. Reckless leaders don't build strong institutions, and those who win elections by dishonest means cannot abide by the demands of ethics and prudence while in office. The question for all of us, therefore, is, how does our political choices align with our economic expectations? I'm often asked what we have done differently in Abia, and my response is often simple: changing the behavior of political leadership. Investors are not returning to Abia because everything has suddenly turned perfect. No. They are coming back because they have seen a clear difference in the disposition of the current leadership. The institutions are becoming more responsive, not because we hired angels to run them. Things are changing at the ministries, departments, and agencies for the simple reason that we entrusted leadership to individuals who understand what it means to lead with a clear service orientation. Men and women who appreciate the principles of stewardship. In Abia, we have not only restored the faith of our people in government, we have effectively demonstrated that agencies of government can be alive to their responsibilities. And of course, the political office holders are actually servants of the people, not their masters. With the streets of our urban centers cleaner than they have ever been, consistency in the execution and delivery of large-scale capital projects, and unyielding commitment to the security of lives and property, it is easy to understand why old businesses are returning, even as new enterprises open in record numbers across our dear state. I had always maintained that even if you relocated to what they call the abroad, seeking... And when I say qualitable actors, I mean both those who are in power and the voters who see votes as wares for sale to the highest bidder. If we treat election seasons as bazaars, a time to extract and squeeze whatever we can out of the system, it becomes inevitable that the primary pursuit of those who win elections will not be to serve the community, but to recoup what has been invested and suck up resources for the next round of polls. I'm sure His Royal Majesty Eze Bakassi, his story is not lost on us. It may be tough to accept, but strong and resilient institutions cannot be built on the back of a corrupt political court. What does just about anyone with a deep wallet to buy voters, electoral officials, media practitioners, yes, media, thrown at the state on a difficult trajectory. In the end, everything as the party that stole the mandate of the people seized Kodaks. And when they could no longer afford to live with it, I can say with every sense of conviction, it's proof that it is very possible to build a robust economy on the foundation of the partners and agencies for the simple reason that we entrusted leadership to individuals who understand what it means to lead with a clear service orientation. Men and women who appreciate the principles of stewardship. In Abia, we have not only restored the faith of our people in government, we have effectively demonstrated that agencies of government can be alive to their responsibilities. And of course, the political office holders are actually servants of the people, not their masters. With the streets of our urban centers cleaner than they have ever been, consistency in the execution and delivery of large-scale capital projects, and unyielding commitment to the security of lives of property, it is easy to understand why old businesses are returning, even as new enterprises open in record numbers across our dear states. I had always maintained that even if you relocated to what they call the abroad, seeking foreign capital, the people will just laugh at you because before you board the plane, they already have all the information about you. So by the time you finish speaking your long English and big English, you talk back, they will just say waka, because they will not come. Investors respond
not on emotions, but on hard facts. So have you created the enabling environment? If you've not created an enabling environment, businesses will not come. The most modern tennis we have recorded in Abia is down to a new orientation to public sector leadership. IBM since 2015 rejected the old political culture of elite compromises. And we are on data by the disappointments of 2015 and 2019, but it remains resolute in their conviction that once we get it right politically, everything else will fall in place. Events of the last 35 months have simply proved that they understand something that some of us may need to pay great attention to. Politics, when done right, expand the sea of economic opportunity for everyone, builds confidence and sets the community free from the agony of destitution and helplessness. The interesting thing is that once the fundamentals are in place, you may not have to wait for ages to see the manifestation of progress in the daily experiences of the population. And what money says about it is not the big things. It is about the small changes that eventually aggregate to great things. Schools that actively educate the young and prepare them for the opportunities of the future. Businesses that make profit and employ the products of our schools and vocational centers, hospitals that attend to the sick, support the health and well-being of the population. Roads that fast-track the movement of people and goods, funds that feed the population, and an economy that supports the hard work of this population, inspires dreams, and drives innovation. Again, these are no abstract ideas. In fact, they are fundamental to the growth and development that we seek. And you will not have everything. I'm happy that I have in the room some of my friends that are working for me in Abia State. They don't come from Abia State. They said, looks like the people are locating okay. Yes, I have Mrs. Alero Tobo and her team, Eric T, who have relocated to Abia State in the last 3 years, supporting us in education. And I have Mrs. Claire Moshe, who is also mostly in Abia State, supporting us at the health area. So you cannot have everything, but when you do, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to once again now introduce the Obi of Onitsha, who we had introduced in absentia. Thank you. The Makochi. Very emergency Igwe Nemeka Alfred Achibe CFR. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. It will help to note that in contemporary economic interpretation, development goes beyond growth in nominal GDP. It is about the experiences of the population, the expansion of our employment opportunities, consistent assault on the menace of poverty, and measures that cutting extreme inequalities, driving inclusiveness, and leaving no one behind. It is therefore not just enough to expend resources on the development of physical infrastructure. The expected social and economic returns have to be estimated in advance to determine the medium to long-term benefits of such investments vis-à-vis other competing demands. The same applies to social welfare programs that prioritize cash handouts or the distribution of food items to poor households. The question of returns and sustainability has to be asked. Does it actually make long-term economic sense to commit humongous sums to short-term consumption? What if such funds are directed transparently to investments in agriculture, power, or public works so as to create real employment for the poor. This is about teaching the hungry to pay their home bread instead of a tokenism of receiving a small loaf every now and again. A productive alternative to economic handouts not only yields superior long-term economic benefits, it preserves the dignity of the beneficiary. Another area of concern is the size of public resources wasted on abandoned projects. Infrastructure initiatives that are discontinued just because the administration that initiated that is out of office. Even many such projects are clearly viable or on the verge of completion. How can genuine progress be made when governance is personality-driven? The bottom line is that there are multiple channels of waste savings that have to be closed, and the savings arising therefrom directed more prudently. Development is impossible without a proper sense of stewardship amongst those in leadership positions. The understanding that what is entrusted in our care does not automatically become private possession, but talents that will be diligently accounted for in due time. Unfortunately, many of us in public offices are yet to acquire the discipline to separate personal interests from public aspirations. Oftentimes, it is about our ego and considerations that are not connected to the expectations of those we are called to serve. The summary of my thought on economic development is that it has to be people-focused, touching directly on the parameters that have expert bearing on our daily experiences as citizens and economic agents. In Nigeria, our national development pursuits should capture efforts at the revival and optimization of dormant factor assets, especially our largest tons of arable land, and the creative energy of our young population and new cross-border opportunities that technology have opened to us. Several nations of the world are doing better than us on multiple fronts, not because they are better endowed, but for the simple reason that they have consistently made better political and economic choices than we have done. Democracy remains the best vehicle for inclusive growth and development, but perhaps the time has come to evaluate how ignorant among the voting public, weak internal governance mechanisms within the party hierarchy, and the mere absence of clarity in the disposition of critical state institutions can hamper the governance. This is a major albatross in our polity, and you can link it to the weakness of our institutions and the growing culture of populist opportunity. This holds a lot of importance to what will happen to our country and the states in the decades to follow, because we are on the eve of another major election. This is the best time to take civic education seriously. The citizens must know what issues will be determined or developed next year, and how all of it is tied to our future. The acquisition of luxurious vehicles, lavish state dinners, and self-serving overseas trips must be frozen immediately. The message for all of us is that our people respond more to what we do, not what we say. Economic growth certainly requires trade-offs, like putting more resources into capital projects and less to recurrent expenditure. High investments in education and health over wide relevant projects, and prioritizing public security over political patronage. However, before announcing a freeze on a wage hike, and the NLC president is here, those who sit at the decision-making table are also obliged to resist the temptation to pad their allowances or allocate higher pets to themselves, and that would be a tragic violation of trust. Since we assumed office in 2023, a central motor vehicle management policy was adopted to fix as many abandoned vehicles as could be fixed, invest more resources in the acquisition of locally made vehicles, and drastically cut down the number of functionaries entitled to official vehicles. We also looked deeper into the nominal role to identify possible channels of malpractices. It was not too long before we discovered thousands of ghost workers, I think about 11,000 of them, and other evidence of malpractices within the system. We have still dealt with those using technology tools and new evaluation process that save the state reasonable sums of money. We have also expanded our independent revenue base by more than 500% in the last 35 months through engagements with different economic groups, and of course the introduction of ICT tools in revenue mapping, mobilization, and remittances. However, the main reason we have done better at external revenue mobilization is not that our people can see that our people can see where their money is going to. They clearly understand our philosophy of governance as partnership between the government and the people. The lesson here is that citizens are much more sensitive than we appreciate. Their response to government policies and programs is tied to their everyday experiences. Fixing our economic governance template requires sending the right kind of signal, one that assures the people that the pay of the reforms will lead to enduring economic freedom for everyone in the fullness of time. I always use this example. I was in my office early 2024, and a gentleman walked in and said he wanted to support me and the government for the road that we built across his house. I felt he was just coming to thank me. He said, "Oh, by the way, I have $200,000 to support you." And I said, "Oh, really? Okay, so I'll give you the internally generated revenue accounts." Baba and his environs. Having achieved that, now working on getting reliable power to the rest of the states. I'm glad that the energy sector is now liberalized to accommodate participation by the states. Abia is already taking advantage of this new window of opportunity to the fullest. We have already started an energy sector partnership framework where government lends its weight to the global share of its periodic revenue to the development of the transport ecosystem within its domain. In Abia, we are working with the private sector to develop a real master plan for the states. While we understand that this is a long-term project, we also believe that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. We have no doubt that regional integration will benefit from rail networks to link agro and industrial sectors to markets within and outside the region. I'm convinced that a lot will change in our economic outlook if we get transportation right, starting with targeted investments in infrastructure. It is on the back of this that we launched our electric buses toward the end of last year, and the fleet will be sold by July this year. In our state, it is our belief that we cannot build a functional economy on the back of small generators. It's also our opinion that nothing will change if the most reliable public transport system are commercial motorcycles, tricycles, and minibuses. Of course, investment in social infrastructure, particularly health and education, where we have allocated 50 and 20% of our budget in the last 3 years, cannot be overemphasized. Lastly, and probably more importantly, is the issue of security. As a reason, security of lives and property is captured in our constitution as the primary responsibility of government. For over 20 years, insecurity has taken so much from our national treasury, while drastically cutting the volume of resources that could have been deployed to drive development outcomes in other areas of need. Insecurity sabotages economic growth, steals talents, and keeps production assets. The other setback in our country are not intractable, but again, there must be a firm commitment on the part of institution, we can then move the gear to monitoring the procurement process in public institutions, cutting waste, and blocking channels or leakages, because every kobo matters. They are both what I consider fundamental to jumpstarting our development. The next step will be the deliberate pursuit of accelerated development through internet service delivery in public sector institutions, especially education and health. People are our biggest assets, so it is important we invest generously in our wealth of human capital, for that is what I consider our truest and most enduring work, far above the treasures that are buried beneath our soil. To appreciate how infinite our human capital